Hello, I'm Locke Meredith. I'd like to invite you to join me on the next Legal Lines, where my guest is Louisiana Senator Dan Claitor. Dan's getting ready to leave public service after almost 12 years of service. He's going to talk to us about the good things that he's seen as a Louisiana Senator and the stuff that he thinks might be improved. But the great news was it works, that our system works. He's also going to talk to us about the interchange between the various branches, the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. So join us on the next Legal Lines with Louisiana Senator Dan Claitor. Legal Lines has interviewed Louisiana Supreme Court justices, appellate trial court judges, federal, state, and local government leaders, including U.S. senators and Congress members. Watch at Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates website, LockeMeredith.com, or Cox Channel 1004.
At Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates, it's an honor and a privilege if you choose us to serve you.
We serve you with respect, dedication, and an unwavering commitment.
We serve you by working hard and striving to get you the best possible results.
We serve you using 60 plus years of legal knowledge, experience, and relationships.
At Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates, we believe that life is about relationships, and it's the mission and ministry of all of us to serve you. Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates has served our community by airing Legal Lines, a community educational program for 18 years weekly to Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas. Watch Legal Lines at LockeMeredith.com or Cox Channel 1004. Hello, welcome to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. I'm very pleased to have back on the show Dan Claitor. He is a Louisiana Senator for District 16, represents about 100,000 folks, and Chairman of Judicial Committee C?
Correct.
And one other one.
Nope, I'm on Health and Welfare,
Health
but
and
I'm
Welfare.
not chairman.
Dan, it's a pleasure to have you back.
Thanks.
I bet not many people know, other than those getting ready to run maybe, that you're termed out.
Yeah.
Come January 2.
Correct.
Of 2020.
Yes.
So I have some really fun questions I got for you, because
right.
You know, you've been there for a long time. You're a lawyer. You were assistant district attorney under Harry Connick, and you know you've been kind of in politics here and there, but private practice in law and all that stuff. And kind of went into that thing. I don't recall any legislators being in your family that I know about anyway.
None.
And you ran, I think, took over
Bill Cassidy's
Senator
seat.
Cassidy's.
Yeah.
All right.
You and I recently had a reunion.
Yeah.
And it was at a previous reunion that I got reminded that public service is something that I ought to consider. One of our classmates.
That was your impetus?
Yeah, one of
Really?
our classmates
Glad
told
I didn't
me,
go to that one.
Yeah, one of our classmates told me, Dan, you've really been a disappointment. And I said, excuse me? And she
I want to know who it was.
yeah, well, she said, we had expectations that you would do public service, and it made me think about it. And so
Wow.
It was not a mean-spirited thing. She just was
I want
like,
to know who it is after
what
the show.
happened to you? So,
That's very interesting. And it was a blast seeing all the folks this past week from all over the nation. Folks came in. It was
Yep.
fun. Lehigh graduates were proud of it, and
Absolutely.
had great sports teams and wonderful teachers and coaches. Coach Nolan saw came the night I couldn't make it.
Yes.
Great man, a lot of great coaches. Saw Coach Boffinger.
yes,
That was a lot of fun.
good teachers.
So kind of give me, you went in green and you're coming out pretty damn seasoned now.
Yeah.
Kind of give me your big perspective about the legislative process and then its role in the whole system, you know, executive, legislative, judicial.
Number one, it works. It's
Now, why do you say that?
because it's representative of the people, and I like the bicameral system in that the House members are a little bit more raucous and they're a little bit closer to the public. The Senate.
Now, they run more often here in the state, or
no,
they're
they,
both same
No, they
terms?
just represent smaller groups of people, and so they
more accessible.
Yeah, and the Senate, it's supposed to be the deliberative body, and I think we've done a good job at that. But at the end of the day, the system works. You contact your representative, you tell them what's on your mind, and if they're not doing what they're supposed to do as far as being representative, you vote them out and you get somebody else in there. So I really do think the system works. Sometimes really good legislation gets killed, but that's also part of the system.
Now, there's 36 senators?
39.
39.
You're getting a little
Okay.
dyslexic on me on your old age. But 39 senators and 105 House members. And where you're talking about the turnover, we're going to have 15 term limited seats. The seat I'm in is term limited. And so you'll see 15 new senators come in, and maybe more than that, as far as the others have to stand for election.
Almost half the whole place. Almost.
Right. And so on the term limit side of things, which I don't believe I would have been elected but for term limits, but on the term limited side of things, one of the things that happens is people go out, and who has the knowledge, who has the experience? Well, then that tends to be the bureaucrats that work in the different agencies, have more knowledge than the actual representatives. And so that can be a bit of a challenge.
That's an interesting observation, because I got to tell you, after watching all this stuff up in D.C. with the kind of the deep state stuff, and basically meaning the bureaucracy, who most of them are there for their lives.
Right, and they can manipulate the
They have
process.
all the damn power, it seems like.
Yep, and so that's a bit of a trade-off, but we have good people that work in the Senate, and I have a lot of confidence in them as far as the staff. But when you go out into the other parts of the agencies, then there's a question about who's running the show.
And we have civil service law here, so folks typically are going to keep that job for as long as they want it.
Yep, and we had an interesting civil service bill as it relates to the city of Baton Rouge and the police department that we might want to talk about later on. But as far as my observations on the process, it works if you get people that are responsive, engaged, and in the process. It's very hard to get ordinary folks like you and I to say, I'm going to put my family out there, I'm going to put myself out there, I'm going to not worry about that silly thing that I did when I was 15 years old, you know? And
Yes, I do that.
It's hard to get ordinary people in there. So you get extreme right and you get extreme left for the most part. And then so of course there's going to be partisan things. So we need to encourage regular folks to get out there and run, because with the state legislature, there's not much pay to it. You're doing it because you're a volunteer. And therefore you end up with...
Say that again. Legislature, meaning both houses.
Yeah, there's not much in the way of pay.
They ain't doing it to get rich.
No, they're not doing it to get rich. On a long year with a lot of sessions, the pay works out to be maybe $32,000. You hear a lot of people saying 16, but what you end up putting on your tax return with the different per diems and everything works out to be a $32,000.
And last year was a bunch of special sessions, wasn't it?
Right, last year.
Holy moly.
It was. So if you don't encourage folks, you're going to end up with retirees, which is great that they have the time to do it, and very wealthy people. And so it'll be kind of skewed. So it's very hard to get regular folks to come up there, participate, and then go back to their regular lives.
That's a interesting and wise observation. So do you feel comfortable kind of discussing the other players in this big picture, you know, the executive, and we've talked about the legislature and the judiciary. Tell me what your observations are as to how the executive branch works.
Sure. So
and does it really make a difference if it's a Democrat versus a Republican?
It does make a difference. It certainly does.
Because you've been there having both.
Yes, I have. And in Louisiana, we're a pro-life, pro-gun state, and we have a pro-life, pro-gun governor. And so, and he's a Democrat, and that's a little bit odd as it relates to nationally. But in the Jindal administration, you saw a lot of things done that were business-oriented and things of that sort. In the Edwards administration, the thing that he's talking about now that he's very happy about is that he got a teacher pay raise.
I saw that.
And so,
but you got to make the union folks happy. And
that does.
Who supports.
And it makes us happy that
Teachers
are getting paid.
Yeah.
So kind of a win-win for everybody on that. But it does matter on who the executive is. And case in point, I got vetoed this session on a bill that I brought.
And I remember Governor Jindal didn't even support you, and you won.
Right. So, so it's interesting how it works. But in this particular session, as far as the process, and I still believe that it works, the bill that I brought as it related to a transition district for St. George.
And we'll talk about that.
It got vetoed. So the system works, but depending on who the chief executive is, that's a pretty powerful stroke of the pen to say this isn't
And the
happening.
Louisiana governor has a ton of power, comparatively speaking. As I recall earlier, you told me that this is the only session that you've never passed a bill.
Yeah, that's right.
Every other session you pass bills, and then you got one passed by both chambers, and then the governor vetoed it.
The bill, yep.
All right, well, we'll continue talking about the St. George proposed bill on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. My special guest, Dan Claitor. Louisiana Senator for District 16. We'll be right back. Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates has served our community by airing Legal Lines, a community educational program for 18 years weekly to Baton Rouge and the surrounding areas. Watch Legal Lines at LockeMeredith.com or Cox Channel 1004.
Hello, my name is Sean Fagan. And you know, one of the most important considerations in hiring an attorney is considering trust. I believe at our firm, our results speak for themselves. Most of the people we represent come from past clients who have referred friends, family members, other people they love to us to represent them in the same way we represented the persons who referred them. It's the greatest compliment any law firm could get. And I believe that if you come to our firm, we'll earn your trust.
Legal Lines has interviewed Louisiana Supreme Court justices, appellate trial court judges, federal, state, and local government leaders, including U.S. senators and Congress members. Watch at Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates website, LockeMeredith.com or Cox Channel 1004. Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, pleased to have back on the show Dan Claitor. He is the Louisiana Senator for District 16. Let's dive back in. We were kind of laughing that this is the only session in your almost 12-year history in the legislature, in the Senate, that you didn't have a bill passed and become law. And that was the St. George bill related.
That was
explain
veto.
to folks what that was.
Okay, so most people around here are aware that folks in the southeastern part of the parish are going to have an election about whether or not
I think that's in October, right?
Yep, on whether they're going to have their own city. Whether you're for or against that is not the issue as it relates to this particular bill. What the bill was supposed to do is, if it was chosen by the people to have this city, then it created a transition district where it had the transition authority, transition ability to collect taxes, and to negotiate with the city.
And all those things had already been done, both for Zachary and Baker, right? Or
Sure.
Central and Baker? I can't remember.
Yeah, it's a model that other folks have used. You'd like a transition district. And as I pointed out in an interview elsewhere, you don't really need a parachute for the first 10,000 feet of a jump, but it's kind of nice to have for the last 2,000 feet, but you're going to land either way. So, and what it did is created an orderly transition district. And there are other ways that this can come about, but the Senate voted for it, the House voted for it, and the governor vetoed it and said it's unnecessary, which I disagree with him on that point. It's necessary if the vote passes. So
it's conditional in a way.
yes, of course.
Let's be proactive instead of reactive.
Of course.
Now,
And
as I understand it, the city of Baton Rouge really opposed it, very much so.
they did. And what would you expect of the mayor to say that I am for it?
And Sharon Broom served in the legislature for years, and pro tem, as I recall.
Yeah.
She
And
knows
she's-
how that system works
Right,
very
she's
well.
a nice lady, and,
Yes, very much
and I
so.
think she's doing a good job as mayor, and I wouldn't expect any different from her to oppose it. But these people have worked so hard to get their vote. We ought to be able to have an orderly transition if they're successful.
And the bottom line is, I think everybody agrees with that, or most everybody, that they should at least get a vote. But as I understand it, there was even bills put forward to not even allow the vote to take place or something?
Well, to dilute the vote.
Oh, that's right. Allow the entire parish to vote instead of just the folks who would be, in fact, within the new city limits.
Right, and as I heard some say, well, under that set of circumstances, I guess we should have allowed England to vote as whether or not the United States was going to come to pass.
Yeah, my position would be, if that's the mentality, I should have been able to decide to vote on the CATS tax, because I didn't live in the city, but I'm still paying property taxes because I have property in the city.
Yeah.
How fair is that?
Right.
So, interesting.
Right. Yep, so the people, if it comes to pass, they'll figure it out. And one of the things that was obvious throughout is it was going to be in litigation at the end of the day, and it'll be a settlement that is hammered out in court if and when it happens.
And as I understand, kind of the big butting of heads, other than just not wanting it to happen, is the division between the potential new city and Baton Rouge of legacy costs.
Yes.
Which is what?
Teacher taught, let's say, at Woodlawn for 20 years, and then, who should be responsible for a pension, and where is that going to come from? A there's no city police out there. There's
Sheriff.
but the sheriff worked out there,
Sheriff did go through.
and things of that sort. So everybody wants, on both sides of that, as far as I'm concerned, a fair allotment of the costs that are related to that. And there are other pieces that are involved as far as taxing ability, buildings and things of that sort, but it's not so complicated that it can't be figured out. So it'll be hammered out in court, and that'll be the way it happens.
That seems pretty clear. It seems like everybody's ready to go ahead and start battling in the courtroom, which in a weird way seems to be the way everything is resolved these days on the local, state, and federal level.
Yep, which actually makes me proud to be a lawyer, in that they leave it up to us.
I'm having a hard time with 5 out of 9 black robe peoples appointed for life with no accountability, defining marriage for us or any other litany of issues. I'm just, we're telling the president, whoever he is, you can't do this when it's, I don't know, I'm just struggling with the amount of power that the judiciary has.
Yeah.
How did that work with you as far as in the legislature?
Well, we're an elected judiciary here, and though that's not supposed to enter into their thinking, you can tell that from time to time it does. We had an election a while back here in our state where there was a discussion about the judge that was running being pro-gun, pro-life, and pro...
Justice Hughes, Jeff Hughes.
Yeah.
He's been a guest several times.
Nice man.
Wonderful guy.
But why would those type of thoughts be part of the judicial process on whether you're pro or not pro? You read the law and you interpret it.
It sure feels like in our span of life, the judiciary has become much more political.
I don't think there's any doubt about it.
I mean, it's really interesting.
Yeah, and on the Supreme Court, it's interesting to see the decisions that we're getting from Kavanaugh and some of these other guys that the liberals were scared to death of.
Yep, Roberts too.
Yeah, and
Chief Justice.
They're just doing their best to say what the law is as it's written. I don't see any of the conservative guys that were appointed, and gals, saying that I'm coming up with new areas of the law all on my own. So
it's interesting.
The judiciary, it's a tough job, and for the most part, under our earlier days as lawyers, they flew under the radar. You really didn't know what was going on at the courthouse, and there's a whole lot larger level of scrutiny, and I don't know if that's a function of social media, the media, or what, but there's a lot more scrutiny there than before.
I think my personal view is, I think just like we have re-elections here for all judiciary, I wish there was some form of accountability for the judges. I mean, you've got, term limits on the president and other stuff, and I don't like the fact that there's not accountability. But let's move on.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand.
Right.
We talk about this stuff, but it's
right. What's more powerful, an aircraft carrier or a pen in the hand of a district judge?
If the district judge can say, no, you can't do that, it's an interesting dilemma.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. But all right, so tell me about some of the bills that you put forward that you thought were good bills that didn't happen, because that's unusual.
Yeah. So one of the bills that I've been bringing forward over the last couple of years has been a surprise to many folks. Has been the bill that I have to get rid of the death penalty.
And we've discussed that. So tell the folks why again.
So, one, when you look at the information, it's not really a deterrent. People that are going to commit murder are not deterred by the death penalty. You look at states that have the death penalty and states that don't have the death penalty. Louisiana leads the nation in homicides. States that don't have the death penalty are below us. So what's happening there?
And I guess the question becomes, because they litigate too, no matter what, they're staying in for years. All right, we'll continue it on the next segment. This is Locke Meredith from Legal Lines. My guest, Dan Claitor, Louisiana Senator, District 16. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Mitchell Meredith. I'm one of the associate attorneys here at Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan & Associates. One of the reasons I love this firm is that the moment you walk through the doors, you're so much more than business. You're family, which means we're going to fight for you as if you're family. At the end of the day, I think what distinguishes our firm from others is we're a firm that is truly personal, professional, and proven.
Hello, my name is Locke Meredith. I'm one of the attorneys here at Locke Meredith, Sean Fagan and Associates. One of the many distinguishing factors of our firm is that we are not just one lawyer that you are hiring. We're a team of attorneys. When you hire one of us, we all pull from each other's experiences, knowledge of the law, so that we get you not only a solution to your problems, but the best solution that we can come up with for your problems. So for that reason and many others, I hope that you hire our firm.
Welcome back to Legal Lines. I'm Locke Meredith. Again, have on the show Dan Claitor. He is the Louisiana Senator for District 16, and frankly, this is his last time to be a Louisiana Senator is this year. January 2, you're done.
I am.
Paid your dues. And you know, we've talked about you already that you don't make a whole lot of money doing this. It really is a public service, and you know, again, you don't even get a pension or anything out of this. It's basically public service.
Oh, absolutely, and I'm happy to do it, and it's been an honor to do it, but sometimes people mistakenly believe that some of the legislators get a pension. There was a pension in effect years ago, but when we did the rewrite of how all that worked, the pension was done away with. And all in all, that's a good thing, in that they had people that were going from a $16,000, $20,000 a year volunteer job. They would transition into other parts of the government, working for the governor or whatever the case may be, and they would start getting paid $80,000, $90,000, $100,000, $110,000, and what was before maybe a $16,000, $8,000 a year pension gets bumped all the way up into a huge pension. That's spiking people's pension, and that's very distasteful. And I brought some bills over the course of the time that I was in the legislature to take everybody out of the retirement system. And when I couldn't do that, I brought some bills to at least lengthen the time that you had to serve as far as it related to the new job, so that you couldn't spike that retirement in a way that was
Interesting.
unfair.
There's no way we would know that. That's insider ball. That's really interesting. I know also you've tried to regulate the state's ability to make us, the citizens of Baton Rouge Parish, pay the district court fees. Explain to folks.
Yeah, so East Baton Rouge Parish is the venue, the place where people file their lawsuits as it relates to the various state agencies. If you're suing the state medical board or the Department of Justice or anybody.
Anything related to the state.
Venue is in East Baton Rouge Parish, but they don't have to pay their filing fees. And so what happens is,
Meaning the
state agencies,
right,
and the pseudo state agencies that aren't even really state agencies, file in East Baton Rouge Parish, don't have to pay any costs when they do it, and they're supposed to pay at the end of the case. Well, the case is over and it doesn't get collected, and so currently the balance that is owed East Baton Rouge Parish 19th JDC is approximately $11 million. And so
moly.
East Baton Rouge Parish
is carrying the bill.
Voters are having to, taxpayers, I'm sorry, are paying the bill. And that's just unfair. And so in the legislature, I brought a bill to say, make them pay some nominal amount so that East Baton Rouge Parish isn't getting taken advantage of to such a degree. And some of the other legislators were saying, well, this and that and whatever. I said, hey, why don't we just change venue to your parish?
Let you do it. Huh?
And y'all take care of it.
Idea.
It'd be just fine. Y'all do it in Gonzales or y'all do it in Shreveport. And they weren't willing to vote for my bill, but they weren't willing to accept the responsibility either. So
that's a double-edged sword they didn't want to touch.
Yeah, not my neighborhood. You know?
So you know, I know that you were very much involved in the criminal justice reforms legislation passed, what, 16, 17?
2 years ago, but it's been coming on all along.
And actually, I read what, a chunk of millions.
We've saved money on it. And it's actually a misconception to say that all the criminal justice reform came to be under Governor Edwards. Actually, Governor Jindal brought some of it on in the beginning, and it was from a fiscal point of view. And the question that I asked, and others sometimes we're confused by is how much justice can you afford? And people go, what do you mean by that? I want to afford a full measure of justice, but there are costs associated with incarcerating people. State of Louisiana, until recently, incarcerated more people than anybody in the free world and anybody in the not free world. But starting under Governor Jindal, there was decisions made as far as it related to nonviolent offenders to not incarcerate them as long as we had been doing in the past. And it picked up speed. Governor Edwards and the Pew Foundation dug into it more, and we had some real changes.
Just occurred on the federal level.
Yeah.
President Trump and the legislature just passed a criminal justice reform.
Yeah, what we were doing wasn't working. And so the question is, does locking somebody up for a really long time on a use of drugs issue accomplish anything?
Other than making them a criminal for life.
And actually sending them to graduate school
Right.
for criminals. And so, there's a balance. But some people would say, let's not take a chance on anybody and lock everybody up forever, except when it's my son or my nephew or my girlfriend's child, where they have a whole lot of different exceptions that they'd like to see. And we got to be uniform about it for everybody.
And as I understood the way it was to work, the money saved was going to be pumped back into programs that helped, rehabilitate folks who are coming out, or train them, or educate them, and give them the skills.
Right, and shift some of that money into the parole side of things, and that the parole officers and probation officers are overworked,
Yes.
hard-working people. And it's very hard to get those guys and gals to stay because they have huge dockets. And so give them some of the resources they need. The reinvestment side of the whole program is about 70% has to go back into the criminal justice system to facilitate the battle against recidivism. And at some point, people do get tired of it. They say, well, wait a minute, they're going to give some skills to a guy or gal that's in prison that I wouldn't be able to get if I was out of prison. Well, no, you have opportunities in high school and junior colleges and other things that are out there. But at some point, we have to address the root cause.
Well, yeah, because recidivism rate is astronomical. What's
It is.
80% plus at times.
That's what it seems to be.
It's
Right.
incredible. So 8 out of 10 of them are going back in unless we do something to change it.
Right, and just give them some skills. They'll teach a man to fish, and they're going to catch your own fish.
Right.
Let's quit giving them fish.
Quickly tell the folks about this attempt to protect our water, our aquifers.
Yeah, so they've got a lot of people engaged in trying to keep our aquifer from becoming too salty. There's a fault line, and we're getting saltwater intrusion. The industry north of Baton Rouge is taking water out of the aquifer, and it's in many leveled things. It's like one of these pretty drinks that you see at the bar where
Right.
they have different levels in it, but they pump from different places. But the end result is, by taking all this water in, we're creating
Filling it
a
up.
fault
Wow.
where the salt water comes. Unfortunately, Georgia Pacific is being eliminated as one of the drawers from it because people aren't buying copy paper anymore. And so they had to shut down that unit, and a lot of our friends out there have been taken out of the workforce. But that's actually helped quite a bit on what's going on. But I brought a bill that simply said, let's reward the residential end user as far as helping them conserve water. And so we were trying to find some ways to reward
And quickly
them.
again, you tried to shut down the ability of legislators to give away two-lane like tickets and stuff, but that didn't fly.
Thank you, Locke.
Dan, pleasure. Thank you for your service. It's Locke Meredith with Legal Lines. Dan Claitor, Louisiana Senator, District 16. See you next time.